Sagittarius, dear Sagittarius, if the last year has felt heavier than usual, if you've been carrying emotional responsibilities that didn't feel very Sagittarius, if you've spent more time dealing with practical realities than chasing adventures, June may feel like the beginning of a long-awaited release. Because for much of the past year, life has been asking you to go deeper, not farther, deeper. And for a sign that naturally loves freedom, exploration, and possibility, that hasn't always been easy. You've been learning lessons about trust, vulnerability, shared responsibilities, emotional intimacy, and the complicated reality that sometimes growth happens in places we never wanted to visit. But here's the good news. June marks a turning point. The energy begins shifting. The pressure begins easing. And by the end of the month, you may feel more like yourself than you have in a very long time. Let's start with the first half of June, because there is still important work happening in your 8th house. This is where Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter are spending much of their time. The 8th house is one of the deepest houses in astrology. It governs transformation, shared resources, trust, intimacy, debts, inheritance, support, and the invisible bonds that connect us to other people. This is not casual energy. This is soul-level energy. For many Sagittarians, the last year has involved learning how to share burdens, how to navigate emotional complexity, how to support others, and perhaps most challenging of all, how to receive support yourself. Because let's be honest, Sagittarius often prefers independence. You like solving your own problems, making your own decisions, following your own path. But life has been teaching you something different, that allowing others to help you is not weakness, it's connection. And June helps complete that lesson. Around June 9th, one of the most beautiful transits of the year occurs. Venus meets Jupiter, and for you, this can bring blessings through shared resources, support from others, financial opportunities, healing conversations, or emotional breakthroughs. Something may feel lighter, more hopeful, more generous. You may suddenly realize that you're not carrying everything alone anymore. And that realization can be deeply healing. Now let's talk about relationships. Because this month brings warmth and possibility. For those who are single, the Venus-Jupiter conjunction can attract meaningful opportunities. Not necessarily because you're searching harder, but because your energy becomes more open, more receptive, more willing to trust, and trust changes everything. For those already in relationships, June supports deeper emotional bonds, more honesty, more intimacy, more vulnerability, and that's important. Because true closeness doesn't happen when people only share their strengths. It happens when they feel safe enough to share their fears too. One of the spiritual lessons of June is learning to receive support, to receive love, to receive kindness, without feeling that you need to earn it first. And Sagittarius, that lesson may be more transformative than you realize. Then, around June 13th, the atmosphere begins changing. Venus enters Leo, and suddenly, everything feels lighter, brighter, more adventurous, more exciting. You begin remembering something essential about yourself. Your love of possibility, your curiosity, your desire to explore, your need for freedom. It's as if life starts opening windows again. The walls begin disappearing. The horizon becomes visible, and your spirit starts responding immediately. This is wonderful energy for travel, for learning, for meeting new people, for exploring new perspectives, and for remembering that life is meant to be lived, not merely managed. Toward the end of the month, relationships gain greater stability. Saturn helps strengthen commitments. Conversations become more grounded, and connections that are built on honesty become stronger. Now let's shift toward career. because this is another area where important developments are unfolding. Early in the month, the Sun forms a supportive connection with Saturn, and this helps you focus on long-term goals, not quick wins, not shortcuts. Long-term success. You may feel clearer about where you're going professionally, or at least clearer about what no longer belongs in your future. And that clarity matters, because every successful journey begins with direction. Then around June 19th, Mercury connects with Mars, and this is where things start moving fast. Decisions happen quickly. Conversations gain momentum. Projects move forward. Opportunities appear. You may feel more confident, more decisive, more willing to take action. If you've been waiting for movement, this is one of the strongest periods of the month. Now let's talk about the biggest story in your forecast, the one that changes everything. June 30th, Jupiter enters Leo and Sagittarius. This is wonderful news, because Jupiter is your ruling planet. When Jupiter changes signs, you feel it strongly. And when Jupiter enters your 9th house, it enters one of the most natural and supportive parts of your chart. This is your territory: travel, adventure, learning, expansion, teaching, wisdom, possibility. For the next 12 months, life begins opening up. Doors appear. Horizons expand. New opportunities emerge. Some of you may travel. Some may study. Some may teach. Some may launch businesses. Some may relocate. Some may simply begin thinking much bigger than before. Whatever form it takes, the message is the same. The next chapter is about growth. Real growth. Not survival. Not maintenance. Growth. The universe is inviting you back into your natural element, and you may feel that immediately. Now let's talk about health and well-being. June carries an important reminder. At the beginning of the month, healing energy is available. This is a good time to address issues you've been postponing, to pay attention to your body, to support your nervous system, to prioritize recovery. Then around June 10th, mental pressure may increase. Mercury's tension with Saturn can create stress, frustration, or feelings of limitation. If that happens, remember, not every obstacle is permanent. Sometimes delays simply give us time to prepare. Don't assume that temporary frustration means you're on the wrong path. Often it means you're still building momentum. Then, near the end of the month, your energy increases significantly. Mars moves into Gemini on June 28th, and suddenly you feel more active, more engaged, more motivated. You may want to travel, exercise, connect with others, or simply move. Your vitality returns, and for many Sagittarians, this feels refreshing. Now let's talk about the spiritual side of the month, because this is where some of the deepest growth occurs. The new moon on June 15th falls in your relationship sector, and it asks a simple question: what truly matters? Not what distracts you, not what keeps you busy. What actually matters? This new moon encourages clarity, focus, and conscious choices. The kind of choices that align with your values rather than your impulses. Then, as June comes to a close, Mercury turns retrograde. And this is your invitation to reflect, to review, to reconsider, especially around emotional patterns involving trust, support, and shared resources. What have you learned about receiving? What have you learned about dependence and independence? What have you learned about allowing others into your life? These are the questions worth exploring. Finally, the full moon on June 30th brings clarity around obligations, responsibilities, shared commitments, family duties, and emotional burdens. You may suddenly recognize where you're carrying too much, where something needs to be delegated, where a responsibility no longer belongs to you. And letting go of that burden creates space for something new. Because Sagittarius, The future that is opening for you requires freedom, not just physical freedom, emotional freedom, mental freedom, spiritual freedom, and June helps create that space. If I could summarize June for Sagittarius in one sentence, it would be this: you are moving from emotional heaviness into personal expansion. The lessons of the past year are not being lost. They're becoming wisdom. And that wisdom is about to carry you into a much bigger adventure. June begins with transformation. It ends with possibility. And somewhere in between, you may remember exactly why your soul came here to explore. Now let's move to Capricorn.